Welcome to the Phil Steele Plus Tour for Week 7. Let's get some winners this week, huh? Disappointing week last week for the Phil Steele Plus Tour. I know these things are free, but I want to deliver you big-time winners, so let's get them this week. 7 big plays for you today. Once again, one of the main purposes of this is to get you to utilize Phil Steele Plus to its fullest. I want to show you all the different things. And a reminder to you, if you do take the Phil Steele Plus Tour, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell. When you hit the bell, you're actually notified when the new one gets posted. So do subscribe, do hit the bell. Helps out a lot, and there's no cost when you subscribe. It's absolutely free here on YouTube. Just take a watch, subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified when it pops up. All right. Got a lot of things to cover for you. A lot of exciting stuff up on the site. I want you to utilize it to your fullest. So let's get rolling. We're going to start with a quick game for you, though. As I said, I got 7 free selections for you today. As you know, I always like to put the visiting team up on the left, the home team up on the right, and that's what we have here. We've got East Carolina is taking on Navy, and you go to the team page, you click on East Carolina, there it is. There's Navy on the left. The one thing I want to point out here is Navy's been a different offense with Dalen Morris at quarterback. Now, Dalen Morris started the opener against BYU, and BYU just crushes foes. We'll get to that in a minute. But then he was benched. We go to the individual stats, and this is what I love about the individual stats when you use this tab. You can see how the quarterbacks played in the game. Well, in the game against Tulane, they actually started a freshman quarterback in the first half. And what happened in the first half? And once again, I love the halftime stats. It's 24-0 at the half. They're losing 291 to 59 yards. So what do? In the second half, they bring Dalen Morris in. Now, Dalen Morris is not last year's quarterback, Malcolm Perry. Malcolm Perry was special. 1,000 yards passing, 2,000 yards rushing. He was the offense. But Dalen Morris has been the best for Navy's offense so far. So they put Dalen Morris in the second half. They win the second half 27-0, and they win the game. Now, if you go here to individual stats, which you can use, you will see that Dalen Morris did not play. 0 rush attempts, 0 pass attempts against Air Force. They left him home. They went with, who'd they go with at quarterback? Tyler Gosselin. What happened? They struggled. They got beat 40-7. Then last week, Dalen Morris was back in the lineup. And guess what? Navy got the win. In fact, Temple got a late touchdown, missed a 2-point conversion, but Navy put up 31 points in the game and got the win. The series history, and one thing I'd like to show you here is you click on the opponent, like right here, East Carolina. Here's the series history. Navy is 1, 2, 3. The green here means that they won the game. Yeah, you could look at the score and see who won and lost, but the green makes it so easy. At a glance, you see they're 6-1 straight up. What the green means out here is that they covered the game, so they're 5-2 against the spread. So Navy has dominated the series, and look what they've done the last 3 times they played East Carolina. They beat them by 35 on the road, they beat them by 28 on the road, and they beat them by 41 on the road. So the last 3 times they've played East Carolina on the road, they beat them by an average score of 66-31, or they've won by 35 points per game. If you check out your magazine page, we've got angles on every magazine page. I want you to go to your magazine right now. Check out the Navy page. You will see that they're 8-3 against the spread as an away favorite. And you then check out your East Carolina page. Look at how they've done as a home dog. How about 10-16? So the angles say Navy. 8-3 as an away favorite. East Carolina 10-16 as a home dog. The series history says Navy, as they've dominated, especially games at East Carolina. And the player personnel, yeah, Dalen Morris is going to start here. And with Dalen Morris, they outscored Tulane 27-0 in the second half and beat Temple. Dalen Morris is your quarterback here. This is the same East Carolina team that did lose to Georgia State's somewhat option offense. They gave up 247 yards on the ground. They're giving up 4.8 yards per carry this year and 69% completions. If we take a look at the defense, they're allowing opponents 77 yards per game above their season average. And how this works out here, Georgia State, if this is a 66 and they gave up 485 yards, that means Georgia State in all their other games averages 419 yards per game. But against East Carolina, put up 485, which was 66 yards above their season average against all other opponents. That's how that works. And this is in for each game. So as you see, they're minus 77, minus 46 against opponent averages so far this year. So all that added up, we're going to make Navy minus 2.5 as your first official play here today. So take Navy minus 2.5. Now, we're going to have a couple of blogs up today. Check out philsteele.com for some blogs. But I do want to show you when you go to the homepage of philsteele.com and you click on FBS info, you can go right here and get your offense and defense YPG versus opponent averages. That's what I was talking about out here. Now, who's the best two teams in the country? Well, we're watching some football tonight, guys. BYU's playing Houston tonight. Make sure you check out that game. Look at this. BYU is averaging 187 yards, more than what their opponents normally allow. And their defense is holding foes to 145 yards per game, below what they normally allow. Now, Houston, a little skewed here. Houston's only had one game, but they rank number 2. If you add the two numbers together, they're 332 yards above their opponent averages. BYU 332. Look at that. Clemson's up there, but they're number 4. The undefeated Oklahoma State in the Big 12, they're number 5. Tulsa, not getting a lot of respect. I think it might have been a play for me this week. Tulsa plus the points. In fact, they probably would have been a play this week. Tulsa plus the points against Cincy. They're doing well. 179.8 above season averages. Texas, surprisingly, up here at number 8. I think they're going to turn their season around. One thing I want to show you on Texas real quick, and the beautiful thing about philsteele.com, or Phil Steele Plus, is you get these red-green things. They take you all the way back. You can go all the way back to 2011 with the red and green. So make sure you check those out each week. But I bring that up because if you go back to 2018, look at this. Texas lost 2 games back-to-back. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Fire Tom Herman, right? They've got 3 losses already. Their season is done. Well, guess what? They won 4 of their last 5 games. They actually finished number 9 in the country. Did pretty well. And with Texas being up here at number 8 against opponent averages, I think you are going to see a turnaround for Texas this year. So do watch, keep your eyes on them. There's your other teams at the top. Who's at the bottom? The teams you would expect. Vanderbilt, Syracuse. How about that? Southern Miss down here at the bottom. Florida State is down here. Florida Atlantic is down here. Middle Tennessee. So this is pretty interesting. It's on each team page over here, but this gives you a recap of the season. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is when you go into the FBS info, you can also get the strength of wins, pains of losses. Once again, we'll probably have a blog up there today. Here's how this works. You get credit for every opponent you beat, you get their FBS wins. So if somebody beat a couple of FCS teams, you don't get credit for that. But if they have a win against an FBS foe, that's what you get credit for. If you beat a team that's winless, you get 0 credit for that. So BYU has got credit for 8 wins so far this year. They're right at the top, number 1. North Carolina is number 2 at 6. Georgia's up here at number 5. Clemson has beat teams that have beaten 4 of their opponents. Same thing with Alabama. So keep your eyes on that. Down here at the bottom, it adds up strength of wins, pains of losses. You could see that UL Monroe has got 5 losses, and they've been the teams that have lost 8 games so far this year. So if your opponent lost a game and you lose to them, you get credit for every loss they have. There are some teams that have losses that actually have credit for 0. Look at Navy. They have 2 losses this year, but the 2 teams they've lost to have not lost a game. So they get credit for 0 opponent losses, even though they've lost 2 games. Fascinating. So do check these out each and every week on philsteele.com. The average grades are on each team page. The other ones are not. All right, let's continue to roll along. And I do want to remind you the schedules here. If you click on this blog right here, the free schedule updates, we're going to update the text, by the way, today. You can see what the books look like with the pasted-in pages. You can only paste in maybe the conferences you're interested in, but they're all right down here. And when you click on the opponent page, that's what pops up. There are 2 on a page. They're full color. They're the exact same size as your magazine, so you can print these off in full color. It gives you the updated schedule for each team. Paste them in on your magazine right here. And this is what it's going to look like if you paste in 4 conferences. That's what it'll look like. Not too bulky. It actually gives you a little bit better strength on your page, and you can write in the scores and have it all up to date right there on each team, plus the updated angles. We went in and we updated all angles. If the teams weren't playing when we did the magazine and now they're playing, we've updated the angles. So that's all set. Get your magazine. It's at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. But make sure you paste in your pages and get it all up to date. And it's absolutely free. It's right here on philsteele.com. Free schedule updates with selections. All right, let's get to our second thing for today. And our second matchup, we're going to go to Syracuse against Liberty. Wow. Couple of poor teams out there, Syracuse and Liberty. We take a look at Liberty is on the road for this one. Put Liberty here. And we're going to put Syracuse here on the right. And now, oops, it's NC State. We're going to put Syracuse on the right. Syracuse is a home underdog for this one. And they deserve to be. Look at that. They are 1-3 so far this year. Liberty is 4-0 straight up. So, of course, you're going to be a home underdog for this one, right? But a couple of interesting things to point out. Last year on Phil Steele Plus, Liberty was on a roll. They had just won 5-2, and they played Rutgers. And I want to bring it back to last year for a second. Let's take a look at this Rutgers team. Rutgers was just horrific last year. They had beat UMass, but lose. They never get blown out in every game. So they were a 7-point home dog to Liberty. I pointed all that out. I pointed out how Rutgers did in non-conference games. Look at this. Rutgers beat Liberty last year, 44-34, with 463 offense. Look at the offense they had been averaging. 152, 314, 75, 189. They were a horrible football team. They put up 463, beat Liberty 44-34. I had pointed out that Liberty had played a soft schedule and that Rutgers was a Power 5 team that was a home underdog to Liberty. They'd be up for this one. We're going to have a similar look at this one now this week because look at the teams that Liberty has faced. Western Kentucky, FIU, North Alabama, ULM. Let's go back here to the homepage. And we're going to go back to the FBS info, and we're going to take a look at the strength of wins. Strength of wins for this one. It's down here. And we are going to take a look at Liberty's strength of wins. All right, let's find Liberty. They have got, so far this year, Liberty's got 4 wins. But how many of their opponents won? Their opponents have combined for 1 win against an FBS foe. So the 4 opponents combined have beaten 1 FBS foe. Liberty gets credit for 1 win. Look at Syracuse. They've only beaten 1 team, but Georgia Tech's beaten 2 FBS foes this year. They actually have more strength of wins than Liberty does. That tells you a little bit about the strength of schedule. And if you're wondering about a 4-0 team in Liberty, they are playing well. I will say that. Liberty has impressed me so far this year. I like the way that Malik Willis, the Auburn transfer, is moving them. The only game he didn't play was North Alabama. We'll have more on that in a minute. But they've beaten West Kentucky, Florida International, North Alabama, ULM. ULM winless, North Alabama, an FCS team. No wins over FBS. FIU has not beat, or I don't know if they beat an FBS team or not. They may have beat 1. So you have 1 win here, and here you have 2. If you put Liberty against this schedule, North Carolina, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Duke, they've played 4 Power 5 teams. Liberty may be 0-4 right now. Syracuse is 1-3. In their home game, as a dog, they beat Georgia Tech. That was an impressive win. Georgia Tech's got 2 wins already this year. So let's add this whole thing up. You have got, and these 2 teams played last year. Look over here. Liberty was at home against Syracuse. Syracuse beat them 24-0. So they shut them out last year at Liberty. Now they get them at home as a home dog, getting 3 points. And last week, if you look at Liberty's game against North Alabama, they won 28-7. They had basically 3 special teams scores set up by special teams in this game. A couple of short drives. That's the North Alabama game. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. Here's ULM, 40 points. But if we look at it, they had a 73-yard punt return for a touchdown, and then they had 2 block punts set up scores on 2 short drives. So if you look at the scoring here, the scores were the punt return touchdown and 2 block punt setup scores. The thing I love about these box scores, and that's something I wanted to point out here, when you click on box scores right over here, click on the box score. collegepressbox.com does a great job. This is the entire game book for the game. Takes you all the way through. It gives you the individual players, gives you the tackles for each team, gives you the drive charts, it tells you who started the game, and then goes play-by-play for every game. I do go through the play-by-play of every single team or every single game each week. I can't watch every single game. I'm watching about 15, 16 games fully. I do watch every game when I've got 12 games on, but not just watching every single play of every single game. And so that's the play-by-play is very helpful. They're right here. Just click on box score. That pops up, courtesy of collegepressbox.com. Thank you, guys. And then these are halftime scores. Tells you what they were at the half. But as you can see, basically 3 special teams touchdowns for Liberty last week. They weren't quite as potent as the 40 points would indicate. They haven't really played anybody. They're a road favorite. Add it all up. I'm going to take Syracuse +3 over Liberty this week. All right, let's take a look at another game. And we're going to take a look at Southern Miss against UTEP. Now, UTEP is playing better football than what you would expect. I will say that about them. They've got a pretty good defensive line. Their offense is struggling. Look at the yards this year. Take away the ULM game, take away the SF Austin game, 233, 293 against Abilene Christian, 266 against Louisiana Tech, struggling a little bit. They do have a couple of very potent receivers in Jacob Cowing and Justin Garrett. And the run game has got Hankins and Fields. But Southern Miss is a team that's sort of been up and down this year. And Southern Miss is a team that I had higher expectations for. Let's go to CUSA and put Southern Miss here on the left because that's where they are. Southern Miss did lose to South Alabama. Then their coach quit. Now, the Louisiana Tech game, Tech scored a touchdown on the final play of the game. I'll click on the box score. You could see that. It was a play that was originally ruled incomplete. This 4-yard touchdown pass came at the last play of the game. And Louisiana Tech pulled out the win by 1 point against Southern Miss. They led Tulane. I want to show you this. They were up on Tulane. The score was 21-14, and then boom, they got destroyed in the second half. So they had a really bad half there, but then they beat North Texas, and now they're going into UTEP. The reason I bring this game up is let's click on here, which gives us our last 23 years matchups. And look at how Southern Miss has dominated. They've won the last 6 games. Not only has Southern Miss won the last 6 games, they've won the last 5 all by 18-plus points. And look at UTEP's yards in these games. 294, 187, 147, 258, 298, 234. You add those 6 games up, UTEP's averaging 239 yards per game. So they've been struggling. You see the red here. They struggle against Southern Miss. Southern Miss only laying 6.5 on the road, needs a win. I like the last 10 years here, and Southern Miss played the tougher schedule. They've played Louisiana Tech, Tulane, North Texas. They've got 2 FCS teams in here, ULM and Abilene Christian. So if we add all this up, I'm going to take Southern Miss -6.5 as one of your 7 selections for you this week. All right, let's get to our play of the week. The play of the week lost last week. Very disappointed. If we go back to look at TCU did end up with a 20-12 first down edge. As you figured, I had told you it was a huge first down edge, but they actually brought in backup quarterback Matthew Downing for a couple of plays. Matthew Downing threw an interception return for a touchdown. Look at individual stats. Here he is 2 for 4. This interception was returned for a touchdown in the game and was probably the key play of the game, the 21-14 loss. They had a 342, 289-yard edge, end up losing the game, disappointing as the play of the week. But that's going to happen. You can't win every single game. We need to win some games this week. So that's why I'm going with my play of the week this week. We're actually going to the SEC. And I'm going to throw Auburn up here on the left, and I'm going to throw South Carolina on the right. Now, your first thought process is, okay, Auburn is ranked. They're 2-1. South Carolina's 1-2. Why is Auburn only laying 3.5 points here? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Auburn has not impressed me. You go back to this Kentucky game. It's 8-7 Auburn right at the half. But look at this. Kentucky had a 234, 143-yard edge. Kentucky scores a touchdown. I mean, the guy's whole body was in the end zone. The refs somehow mark him down on the 1-yard line. They turn the ball over on the next play, don't score. Had they scored that touchdown, would have been up 14-8, get the ball in the second half, all the momentum, it dominated the game. They end up giving a couple of 20-yard drives at the end of the game on a stopped on downs and a turnover and lose the game 29-13 to Auburn. Auburn was not that impressive, outgained by 60 yards. Georgia just manhandled them in that game. And last week against Arkansas, referee call once again at the end of the game. The backward pass ruled just intentional grounding, allowed them to kick the game-winning field goal and escape against Arkansas. Look at this. Their yards on the season, they're being outgained by 92 yards per game. That doesn't sound like a 2-1 ranked team, does it? Now let's go to South Carolina. They're 1-2. Well, that's not very good, right? Well, on the other hand, they're outgaining their foes by 58 yards per game. In fact, their defense held Florida to a season low, 348 yards. They're holding their opponents to 37 yards per game below their season average. If you're saying Auburn's defense is outstanding, yes, it was last year. Last year, they held opponents to 79 yards per game below their season average, number 14 in the country. This year, they're giving up their opponents 73 yards above their season average. That's way down at the bottom 10 of the country coming in. Let's take a look at the average game grades. And the thing about the average game grades that I want you to use when you have these pages and you're lining up the teams side by side, the average game grade just doesn't take a look at the scores of the game. If it did, it would probably have Auburn, the better team, right? They're 2-1 versus 1-2. Average game grade takes a look at the score of the game, your opponent, who you played, and how you'd fared in the game yardage-wise. Well, now if you do all that, you can see that Auburn, even at 2-1, only has played to an average game grade of 97.4. South Carolina's played to an average game grade of 103.3. Average game grade say South Carolina is 6 points better, plus they're at home. That'd be about a 9-point favorite, and they're getting 3.5 points in this game. Add it all up. It's my Phil Steele Plus game of the week. I'm taking South Carolina plus 3.5 to upset our ranked Auburn team this week. All right, we got 3 more games to hit. I did show you strength of opponent. I think I showed you both things under the thing. I showed you the schedule, so let's just go to the next game. Next game and our final FBS versus FBS game, we're going to take a look at West Virginia against Kansas. Now, a couple things I want to point out to you at this one. Kansas, I actually think Les Miles is doing the right thing. Les Miles could have done the quick fix. He could have gone for JUCOs, transfers, trying to get Kansas to be competitive right away. Instead, Les Miles, what he has done, he's gone with his freshmen. And I can't knock him for that. It's going to help him out 3-4 years down the road when these freshmen all have experience. And now he's got freshman classes and better depth. What's it doing for him this year? Well, 2 years ago, Kansas went the JUCO route. They brought in a whole bunch of JUCOs. They got a whole bunch of seniors on the team who weren't playing because they weren't great. JUCOs are a hit-and-miss thing. So you got a lot of freshmen playing. The seniors that are on the team probably aren't playing. He's going to go with another huge freshman class the next year. This is a team that's going to take their lumps. They're 0-1, 0-2, 0-3 against the spread. Now, one of my favorite axioms is to play on streaks. When you play on a streak, you can win many times, and you lose only once. And we're going to start that with Kansas this week, and we're going to ride it out. I'm going to play against Kansas every week until they actually cover a game. They're 0-3 against the spread. Let's continue to play against them. You know, if we lose once, it's a break-even proposition. But you could end up with a long streak. You know, maybe they lose 7 in a row, and you all of a sudden end up with 4 or 5 straight wins, and you got to love that. And the other thing I'm going to point out in this West Virginia-Kansas game, I would have told you to open up your magazine, but I'll show you the page right here. I've got my Big 12 unit rankings. West Virginia has a dynamic defensive line. They may be number 3 in the Big 12, but they're ranked among the best in the country. They're taking on a Kansas offensive line that is number 8. I like this matchup. West Virginia's defensive line should create a lot of havoc. Kansas is number 10 quarterback-wise. They're number 10 defensive line-wise, number 10 linebacker-wise, number 10 DB-wise. I think West Virginia, which last year, look at this. If you look at the Red, they couldn't run the ball last year. They struggled running the football. This year, they are running the football. We look at Letty Brown, Alex Sinkfield. They are moving the football on the ground. They will be able to run the ball in Kansas. Kansas giving up 228 yards per game, 4.7 yards per carry. Dagey is a guy that came in at quarterback. You can flip back and take a look at last year's individual stats. Just click on it right here. You will see that Dagey came off the bench, and that's when their offense ignited. Here he is with the last 4 starts. They wanted to redshirt him, so they only played him the last 4 games. West Virginia had a much more productive offense those last 4 games last year. And so far this year, they could have beaten Oklahoma State. They had a 22-20 first down edge. They should have beaten Baylor way worse than a 27-21. I think this is a West Virginia team that's under the radar, can run the ball and throw the ball on a Kansas defense, and their defense should be able to shut them down. I like that defensive line, offensive line matchup. We're playing on a streak here. We're taking West Virginia minus 22.5 over Kansas. All right. You know, the star of this Phil Steele Plus last couple of years has been the FCS. The FCS has been hitting about 80%. Not this year. We've been struggling on these FCS games, and frankly, there's been a couple of things that have happened that have perturbed me a little bit, and this game sort of sums it all up. Let's take a look at Jacksonville State against North Alabama. Let's put Jacksonville State is at home. We're going to put them on the right. Actually, Jacksonville State's on the road, so we're going to have to put them on the left. I'm going to put North Alabama here on the right. line them up over here, and we're going to put Jacksonville State. Now, 2 weeks ago, I gave you Liberty over North Alabama. And guess what? Liberty decides they're going to bench their quarterback, let him rest. And so they only put up 357 yards. They still won the game 28-7. And this is a North Alabama team that loses their quarterback, Christian Lopez from last year. Rhett Files is their QB this year. He had an 0-2 ratio in the beginning game. They lost their top running back. Driggers was the top running back here. And the bulk of the receiving core from last year is around, but was unproductive in the opener. But anyway, Liberty didn't play their quarterback. I ended up with an FCS loss here on Phil Steele Plus. Now Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State's beaten Mercer 34-21. We've got that game covered. We're winning it. Then guess what? The dreaded backdoor cover. Mercer drives down the field, 74 yards, 8 plays, and in the final 2 minutes, tucks in a meaningless touchdown, and Jacksonville State wins by 6. I think they were laying, 7.5 last week? So we ended up with a loss in that game because of the backdoor cover. So tough one. I'm going to double down on these two teams. I think when you look at them, let's take a look at last year. It's a Jacksonville State team that 2 years ago was, look at all these wins. This was a high-flying playoff team in 16, 17, and in 18, who was their quarterback? Zara Cooper. They played to an average game grade of 75.1. They blew teams out. They got far into the playoffs. They were good. Now, last year, they slipped up 3 close losses at the end of the year, had them miss the playoffs. Zara Cooper is still their quarterback and had a good year. Guess what? Zara Cooper's still there. And he's hitting 71% so far this year. They gave Florida State a heck of a game. They were winning that game, I believe, late second quarter. They were winning that game. And then last week gave up the backdoor cover. This is a quality Jacksonville State team. Jacksonville State, by the way, is in Alabama. It's not in Florida. And then you take a look at North Alabama. North Alabama, if you look at their average game grade, just 48.3 last year. They got the benefit of playing Liberty without their quarterback. 43. You look at Jacksonville State, even in their down year, 62, which would still give them a 14-point edge over them last year. But 75-43, this is a team that was way up there. North Alabama's a team that just moved in to FCS. So the line on this game is actually 8.5. But I think when you take a look at the matchups here, this is a Jacksonville State team that was 63-16 from 2013 to 18. They've got the same quarterback as 18. North Alabama only averaged a 43.8 average game grade. I definitely like Jacksonville State. I'm going to take them minus the 8.5 over North Alabama this week. Once again, it's a state rivalry because Jacksonville State's in Alabama. I'm going to take the Gamecocks this week minus 8.5. Much better quarterback, much better team overall. Take Jacksonville State minus 8.5. All right, I'm going to show you a little bit in the NFL. Once again, like I did with the college. Once again, I think we'll have some blogs up there with some NFL stuff this week. But if you click on NFL info, you can get the strength of wins, paying the losses. This is going to surprise you. It's going to shock you. Which team, now once again, strength of wins, if you beat a team, you get credit for every win that team had. If you beat a winless team, you get 0 credit. 0. Who's got the most wins this year? How about Las Vegas? And you're saying to yourself, that's impossible. Las Vegas has the most? Well, let's go take a look. And we look at the Raiders' wins this year. They've been over Carolina, which has 3 wins. The Saints have 3 wins, and Kansas City has 4 wins. That's 10. And let's take a look at the Chiefs' wins, and they only have 8. So you take a look at Kansas City's wins. They have more wins this year, but Houston only has 1 win. The Chargers, I think, have 2, Baltimore 3, New England 2. You add them all up, it comes up to 8 wins. So the LA Raiders, or Las Vegas Raiders, are actually number 1 with 10 combined wins. Cleveland's beaten teams that have 7 combined wins this year. Seattle with 7. And who's at the bottom? Naturally, Atlanta, the Jets, the Giants, and even Dallas is down here. They haven't beaten a team that's won a game this year, which is a little disappointing because I'm going to bring that up a little bit later about the Dallas Cowboys this week. But that's your strength of wins chart. The other one, and I found this one fascinating as well when I glanced at it, is the offense versus opponent averages. The Rams are right at the top this year. They're 106 yards per game. I showed you how that works. And if you look at the NFL page, as an example here, the Chiefs gave up 479 yards to the Chargers. The Chargers on the season, if you take away that game, are only averaging 368 yards per game. So that means they gave them 111 yards above their season average. That's how this chart works out here. KC's actually giving their opponents 7 yards above their season average and getting 47 above. So as impressive as KC was with some of their wins this year, they only come in down here at plus 40.2 above the season average. The Rams are at the top. Tampa Bay, oh, who's this team? The Dallas Cowboys are number 3. Aren't they just 2-3 this year? Yep, but they're 82.5 yards above their opponent average. Green Bay up there, New Orleans up there. How about Carolina? Matt Rule doing a hell of a job at Carolina. I'd expected them to be about 0-5 right now. Instead, they're 3-2. Not really sure how he does it, but he does it. Did an amazing job at Temple, did an amazing job at Baylor. Look what he's doing with Carolina right now. Teams at the bottom, this one might surprise you. The Seattle Seahawks. And you're wondering, how is Seattle second lowest in the NFL? This is a Seattle team that's unbeaten. But look at this. They got outgained by Atlanta by 123 yards. They got outgained by New England by 35 yards. They got outgained by Dallas by 110 yards. They're minus 75 yards per game. They're giving up 471 yards per game. They're giving their opponents 86 yards above their season average. And their offense is getting exactly what their opponents normally allow. So their opponents are allowing at an average 396 yards per game. That's what they're getting. They're not doing anything spectacular statistically, but they're 5-0. And that's all this guy here. This Russell Wilson, you may have heard of him, 19-3 ratio. He can pull a rabbit out of a hat. He's a magician. But Seattle's way down here. You might keep your eyes on that for future weeks. Might be a little value in future weeks going against this Seattle team. So make sure you utilize these things, which are in the NFL. But speaking of the NFL, let's get to our NFL play for this weekend. So I'm going to go to the NFL team pages, and this is what they look like here. And we are going to put the Arizona Cardinals on the left. We're going to put the Dallas Cowboys on the right. Cowboys are in deep trouble, right? They just lost their Dak Prescott. They're done for the season. Well, actually, you know what? I've watched the NFL for quite some years. I don't put Dak Prescott up there with Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees. He hasn't done well in big games for the Dallas Cowboys. He puts up a lot of stats against the weaker teams, but struggles somewhat against the better teams. Take a look at 2009 individual stats. Or you just look at Dallas's total points, maybe 10 points against New Orleans, 24 against Green Bay, 9 against New England, 15 against Buffalo, 9 against Philly. Struggles against some of the better teams out there, point-wise, production. So I don't think it's going to be a huge drop-off. And Andy Dalton is an experienced quarterback. No, he didn't light the world on fire, but he had his years at Cincinnati. And what I love is I have a quarterback injury system, which says when a major quarterback goes out, 3 things happen. Number one, your team wants to show, hey, we're not just all about that quarterback. We're still a team. You're going to get Dallas's A++ game here. The other team generally lets down a little bit, but the big thing is the line moves. And here you have the Dallas Cowboys, a home underdog to Arizona. They're plus 1.5 because of the injury. Well, they still have Ezekiel Elliott. As I mentioned, you look at them yardage-wise, they're plus 84 yards per game this year, 123 yards above their season average. And last week, Andy Dalton didn't do a bad job. We took a look on the individual stats. Andy Dalton came in, hit 9 of 11 for 111 yards. In fact, if we take a look here in the NFL, the box scores are updated. So we can click on that. This is courtesy of NFL.com. They have these, which are tremendous. You can see the Cowboys are losing. And then Dalton comes in and lead. They were down 24-20. Or wait a minute. How this go? Oh, yeah, here they are. They were losing. Where's the visitor? 34-31. They tie the game and then get the win. So they were actually struggling against the New York Giants. They got a comeback win. Got the win with Dalton at quarterback. The two teams are, if you look at Dallas, let's take a look at the workbook page here. We're going to take a look at the Arizona workbook page first. How do they do as a away favorite versus non-division teams? It doesn't happen often, but in the last 4 years prior to this year, 0-4 against the spread. Look at that. Not in the last 2 years, 0-2, 0-2. So they struggle in this particular category. And these pages are all available in the NFL workbook. Now let's take a look at the Dallas Cowboys page when we look at the workbook page. How do they do as a home underdog? Well, 1-0, 2-0, 1-2, 1-0-1. The Dallas Cowboys are 5-2-1 as a home dog the last 5 years. The Arizona's 0-4 against the spread as a non-division favorite the last 5 years. And let's take a look at who the teams have faced. The Dallas Cowboys have played the LA Rams, Seattle, and Cleveland. These are all teams that have 4 wins or more. Arizona's team has played one team that has 3 wins, and that's Carolina. All the other teams they played had a losing record. So Dallas has played 3 tough teams this year. Those are the 3 teams they've lost to. Arizona's played one team that's 3-2, which would be the 4th best team. They've played the 3 toughest teams. They played the 4th best team and lost to them as well. So Arizona has been beating weak teams, but this is a team that Dallas that I think is out to prove itself. It is Monday night, but I think Dallas needs to prove it here. And when you look on the NFL team pages, you do get these individual player stats. You can come down here and get all the stats, color-coded green and red for every game. And which tells you, you can see the green numbers here for their offense. They did give up 508 yards to Cleveland, but Arizona gave up 444 to Carolina. So they're giving up 23 yards per game above their season average. They're giving up 41. So I add it all up. I like Dallas in this situation. It's my patented quarterback injury system. I'm going to take Dallas plus 1.5 over Arizona. A couple things to show you also here before we get to our final thing is the NFL workbook. You get 3 full pages on every NFL team. If you would like to get that, that's what you get on every NFL team in the NFL workbook. Just go here to the store, and when you go to the store, you can click on NFL workbook right here. And then the other thing I want to do is give you a discount, and your discount is going to be for my newsletter, College Football Press Box. And we dropped the prices this week. It's down to $119 for the college regular season, $119 for the NFL, $89 for the postseason, and you get the Phil Steele Plus. By the way, if you want Phil Steele Plus right here, we dropped the price to $59. You get all this access through the Super Bowl for $59. This is my own personal stuff that I need, I rely on. It gives you can get everything looked up on every single team. Right here, Phil Steele Plus, $59. But it's free when you subscribe to my newsletter inside the press box. Even if you just subscribe to the college at $119, you could take $20 off right now, and you would get it for $99. So type in the code word football is back. Just click here on college. It's $119. Type in the code word football is back. You get it for $99 this week. If you just want to try an issue, college or pro, it's normally $20 a week. Go there, buy the single issue up here, and then click in Try Me. You get it for $10 this week. And if you want to become an elite member, get my press box write-up. This is every write-up on every game. I even write up the FCS games completely. And you also get a projected box score. The projected box score shows you the yards passing, yards rushing, points for every game. It's my computer's forecast on every game. You got my computer's forecast. You get my complete write-up on every game. It's the NFL and college bundle right here. Right now it's $209. That's the college, which is $119. The pro $119. The college and pro is $89, and the full the Phil Steele Plus $59. $386 if you bought it separately. Right now it's just $209. Take $50 off. Type in Elite Member. Get it for $159. So those are your discounts for watching Phil Steele Plus. I appreciate that. And once again, this tour is all about trying to get you all the latest information. 7 free plays for you today that we have covered for you. And make sure you check out those free schedules. And let's have a big winning week this week, huh? I'll be back with you next week with your next Phil Steele Plus tour with selections.